In this demo, we're going to look at how to create user quotas. But first, I'm going to show you how to use the swap space partition that we created last time. Let's start by doing an fdisk minus L. And remember, last time we took the swap space partition from SDA3, and instead we created a Linux partition, and then we moved the swap space to SDA4. Now, this swap space is there, but we need to format it and enable it so we can use it. An important command when looking at memory is free. So if we run free, we see that we have about 125 megs of primary storage. But for swap or virtual storage, we have no space. So if we ran out of this RAM here, we would be in big trouble. So let's go ahead and use that swap space. The first command we need to do is do make swap to basically format that partition as swap space. So make swap dev SDA4. So now that sets it as swap space, and the next step is to basically make it available as swap space. So we'll go ahead and do swap on dev SDA4. And now if we run the free command, we can see that now we actually have swap space, which is all free, so we're not using any of it right now. So that takes care of our swap space. The last thing we need to do is edit the etc fstab file so that if we reboot, we still can use that swap space and we don't have to do this every time we reboot. So what we're going to do is delete this stuff out and put the partition, which is dev SDA4, and that's for swap. So when we reboot, that will get mounted automatically. So we're done with the swap space now. The next thing we want to do is actually create user quotas. When we install Red Hat Linux, we created a user account called student. If I do finger student, I can see that that user account has its home directory as home student. So what I want to do is prevent this user from putting more than 20 megs of storage space in his or her home directory. So right now, if I become that user su minus student, I can show you how there's no files in my home directory, which is in home student, but I can copy a big file such as tmp 22 megs, which is a 22 meg file, and I can copy it over to here, the current directory. Okay, so now if I do an ls minus lah, I can see that I have a 22 meg file in my home directory. So basically I can use as much storage as I have available, which in this case is 724 megs. So what we want to do is put a quota so that we limit the users since we don't have much space available. So I'm going to remove that file, the 22 meg file, and I'm going to exit so I'm back to being root. Anytime you do quotas or any type of system administration, you need to be the root user. So so I'm back to being root, and the first thing we need to do is to unmount the home directory, because that's the directory where our partition where we want to set the quotas. So I want to do a umount /home to unmount it. Then we're going to go to the etc fstab file, and we need to add some options here under our home. We need to add some options after default. After defaults, we need to put USR quota, and that is so that we can set user quotas. If we wanted to do group quotas, we would put a GRP quota, but I actually misspelled that. It's USR quota. That's correct. And that tab is okay there. So now we basically told the file system that in /home we're going to use user quotas. So the next step is to save this file. So we saved it, and now let's mount the home directory again with mount -a, which mounts all the devices listed under FS tab. And if we do a df-h, we can see that now our dev SDA3 is mounted as home. So the next step is to actually create the files where all the quota information are kept, and this is done with the quota check command. So basically what you do is you run the quota check -a_vugm to basically specify all the quota files that need to be created and enabled, and that the quota for all users and partitions get checked on all the partitions. So it's going to scan /home, which is the one where we enabled it, and it tells us that it's checked 6 directories and 10 files. So we're done with that. So now we can go to ls-la/home, and we should see some quota files, and there it is, a quota user, because we have a user quota. So now we know that we've created the files necessary for user quotas. So the next step is to actually open the student account with the quota editor and edit the quotas for the user student. So that's what we're going to do next. So we do add quota, and we do -u for user and student. So right now this shows that I have a quota on dev SDA3, which is my home partition. Right now it's using 44 blocks. I don't have any quotas with soft limits or the hard limit. A soft limit is basically the maximum amount of space a user can have on a partition. If you have a grace period, which is the number of days a user is allowed to be above a given quota, then after they get grace period, the user might get under the soft limit to continue. In a hard limit, if a grace period is enabled, then this will be the absolute limit a person can use. If we're not using grace periods, then the soft limit is the maximum available space for each user. You can also set, right now I'm using 11 inodes or 11 files, and you can set quotas on the number of files, soft and hard quotas on the number of files that the user can use. We really don't care how many files they create. We're really more concerned on how much space they use. So in our case, we're going to set this, instead of 0, we're going to set it to 18. These are 1024 blocks, so we're going to make them 18,000 for 18 megs. And this one we're going to make 20,000 for 20 megs. So basically I'm using 44 blocks right now in home. I'm setting a soft quota of 18 megs and a hard quota of 20 megs. And I have 11 inodes in use, and I don't have any quotas on those. So we're ready to go, so I can go ahead and save that. The add quota command basically just opens a file with VI, so you can use any commands that you've used in VI to edit this file. If you're more comfortable with other users, you can set up the editor variable and use a different user, a different editor, I mean. So I'm going to save this, and actually that saved my quota. So now I can look at, if we want to look at the grace period and set up a grace period, I can do add quota -t, and this basically sets the grace periods. What I'm going to do here is for block, I'm going to set no grace period, so I'm going to just set a grace period of 0 days. So I'm going to exit, save that, and exit. Again, that opens the file in VI. So now I basically set up the quota. The only thing left to do is to make these quotas to enable these quotas. And this is done with the command quota on minus V for verbose on all file systems, UG for user, and actually I don't need group, so just user. If I want to be more specific, I could do minus VU and /home, so just does it on /home. Since that's the only one that I have, that's the one that I'm gonna do. So now quotas are turned on in home. So let's verify that this has been done. So now I'm gonna SU and become student again, and I see that I have no files in my directory, so I'm gonna try to copy that same file I did before, the 22 meg file from temp, over to my home directory, and let's see what happens this time. As you can see, the quotas are enabled, so I've exceeded the maximum available, which was 18. So if we do NLS minus LIH, I can see that only 18 out of the 22 megabytes were copied. And it tells me that there's a warning, user quota was exceeded, and then this quota was exceeded, and it didn't copy the entire file. So that basically shows you how to set up quotas.